they're a Singapore-based crypto exchange. They're popular in use in Thailand. Tell us about the nuances between an investment offer versus buyout and what that means for the future of Zipmex.
It's a great question, Christine. And frankly, we can go ahead and highlight the last story, or the story after this story that you just mentioned, which is the Voyager FTX situation. So look, we've seen Elon Musk walk away from Twitter. And so an MOU, or a memorandum of understanding, is simply an indication of interest. It doesn't show anything in terms of a firm commitment, and certainly not a firm offer or a buyout. It's my understanding that the company is looking for an investment as opposed to a buyer per se. But nevertheless, right now they are just in the midst of doing due diligence, and we don't know anything about the capital wherewithal of this counterparty. I should hope that the company might, or its advisors might, but there's no way of knowing if in fact the counterparty that is doing the diligence in fact has the capital necessary or the wherewithal to go ahead and even pull through on any sort of offer if it eventually makes one.
Mm-hmm. Well, sorry, just going back to Zipmex, so they lent out $100 million to Babel, which had big exposure to Three Arrows Capital, which lost in Terra Luna GBTC trades reportedly. Any hope of getting any of those assets back?
Oh, sure. I think that there is, there is hope of getting some recovery. And I think that the recovery in some of these cases may be robust. But there's a process to the recovery. And also remember, Christine, that we're dealing with assets that are pretty volatile in terms of pricing. And so, whether those assets will be worth, more or less or much more or much less, at the time of recovery, which may take, a bunch of months, maybe, more than a year, needs to go ahead and be seen. So I think that for right now, and this is really the crux of the issue, is the illiquidity. There is illiquidity because one major player, Three Arrows Capital, went ahead and got an order to file for bankruptcy, and therefore its assets are frozen, and therefore there is a bunch of other companies indirectly connected that now have their assets frozen as well. And so therefore, unfortunately, they all cannot redeem or meet, customer requests for taking money out or transferring assets out. And so therefore, everyone's going to have to go ahead and either be patient or, sell out at a major, discount, let's say, if someone comes along and says, we're willing to go ahead and buy the assets here for some, major haircut on the actual value thereof.
Mm-hmm. Well, pivoting to the Voyager FTX deal, so Voyager's calling it a lowball bid by FTX. Do we have any details on what the offer exactly is? I know Sam Bankman-Fried has said that his offer is good for customers, bad for scavenging consultants. Is the truth somewhere in the middle?
Definitely. You're right on top of it. I think the bottom line is this. Sam Bankman-Fried is probably coming along. First of all, Sam is involved in a number of ways with respect to this company. Not only as a lender, but as a creditor, a depositor, and so on. The FTX relationship is certainly pervasive. And the offer, we don't have the details, but the offer is probably something that involves a bunch of those different relationships with the company. But at the same time, I think when you look at his pronouncement about it being good for customers, it's great for customers if all customers want is liquidity, and frankly are not particularly interested in the value. And I know that's a funny thing to say, but if someone told customers, listen, you could have 20 cents on the dollar of what it is that you deposited right now, or you could wait 2 years and potentially get 50 cents, maybe get a bit more, possibly get somewhat less, those customers may not be particularly happy. And Sam Bankman-Fried is not wrong to think that retail customers are first and foremost concerned about liquidity.
So what's the best case scenario for customers? What can they recover on the dollar?
Oh, I I think I will not go ahead and speculate on the valuation at this point, because it all depends. We're talking about a lengthy proceeding. We're talking about creditors that have not yet been fully.
Let me bring up a tweet by Sam that he has posted. So he said, so what's going on with Voyager? Well, lots of parties were trying to bid 10 cents on the dollar for the assets. If a customer had $100 on the platform, the third party would pay $10 for it, get whatever funds were made, maybe 75, and then the customer gets back $10. Sound about right?
That's someone that's offering right now a bid for the assets, right, to buy them out. My assumption is that Sam came forward with a bid for the company that was better than 10 cents on the dollar, that returned more than that to the customers. I can almost assure you that he's not giving a bid that will get 100 cents on the dollar back to customers. We're talking about somewhere in between. And what he's saying is, 10 cents on the dollar is way too low. I'm going to offer something better than that. And frankly, yeah, there may be 75 cents on the dollar returned at some point in the future. But if, he's the owner of those claims or those deposits at that point, he's going to be the beneficiary of the 75 cents on the dollar.